Welcome to Independent Green Party, Green TV, the show dedicated to positive New Deal solutions and the candidates who advocate for them. I'm Angela Trusty, your host for today. Green TV is about green New Deal eco-jobs for the economy, positive solutions, eco-capitalism, prices must tell the environmental truth. The green revolution, the green industrial revolution, solar jobs, wind jobs, geothermal jobs, weatherization jobs, rail jobs, conservation and efficiency jobs, building green neighborhoods that are walkable, bikeable, rail and pedestrian friendly communities, cutting taxpayer subsidies for big oil and fossil fuel to zero. Rail built anywhere in America benefits all of America. Today, we'll be featuring baby boomers. Boomers are turning 70. According to the Population Reference Bureau's 2016 report, there are over 46 million Americans 65 and over. By 2030, there will be about 60 million Americans 65 and over. Rural American is becoming more gray. Gray is becoming more ethnically and racially diverse. Increasingly male, as men are closing the lifespan gap, and about 40% are obese. Boomers drive, and 20% of women and 30% of men are still in the workforce.
What if my family and doctors approached me and sat me down and said, Nicole, you have been working way too much. And since you've decided to spend long hours at the office, you've gotten behind in your housework, you got into that little fender bender before that early morning meeting the other day, and we think it's affecting your choice in romantic relationships. So what we think is best for you is to have us downsize you into a small apartment. We're gonna take away your car keys, and we're gonna have you stop seeing that person you've been dating. I would be furious. I would be angered and hurt that the people who know me no longer think that I should be able to make decisions about my life. And at 37 years old, I think that all of you here would agree that I have the right to feel that way. But I hate to tell you, this conversation is actually had just about every day. The only difference is the person on the receiving end is usually about 40 to 50 years older than I am. Many older adults lose control of making decisions about their lives as they age. And we younger people, we see that that happens to them. And so it's one of the reasons why we're all afraid of getting older. And we're all afraid of getting older. The fear usually starts in our 30s and 40s, and it intensifies with every new sign of aging. So every gray hair, every wrinkle. And when have you ever heard somebody in their 30s say, man, I cannot wait to turn 75 because that's when I'm gonna be living my life. But the truth of the matter is, older people actually don't lose control over making decisions about their lives as much as it's taken away from them. It's taken away by their families, their doctors, nurses, social workers. For some people, this happens all at once, but for most people, this is actually a process that unfolds over time, where the people who are close to them, usually out of feelings of love, caring, and protection, they place growing limitations on their ability to make decisions about their life. But how do older people feel about that? I mean, just like the rest of us, older people want most, if not all, control over their lives. And even older people who have mild to moderate dementia can make consistent choices about things like the food that they eat and how they're provided care. But at the same time, we tell older people what to do. We limit their choices and we withhold information from them so they make the decisions we want them to make. We act as if they never know what's best for them. And worst of all, we treat them as if they never have been or are nothing like us younger people, with personalities, preferences, and goals. Even we can see this in our language. We collectively call people who are older the elderly. as if once you turn 65, you have more in common with this faceless group of people who are bound together by age than adults in any other age group. Now, sometimes we like when we see older people break these rules and they just live life the way they want. I mean, look at Willie Nelson. Willie Nelson has a huge following of younger people. And I'm pretty sure that Betty White, she's having a lot more fun than most people my age. Now, that's great for Willie and Betty, but what about the rest of us? Unfortunately, when most older people don't listen to what we tell them to do, we refer to them as stubborn. Now, as a gerontologist, and that's just a fancy word for somebody who studies aging in older people, what if I told you that we could all have that, and we could all live the way that we want as we get older? I've taken a lot of interest in choice and decision-making as we get older, and so I conducted a study that was funded by the John A. Hartford Foundation, where we interviewed 50 people to learn more about how older adults exercise control and make decisions about their lives. And I've got to tell you, this was not some faceless group of elderly people that we interviewed. These were inspiring individuals who had interesting life stories, career histories. Some of them were Holocaust survivors. When we interviewed them, they were between the ages of 60 and 97. And many of them were experiencing some of the challenges of later life that statistically, most of us in this room will have later. Problems with our memory, chronic illnesses, decreased mobility. So we analyzed these interviews to see if there were any shared experiences across the group. And the data revealed a lot about how older people perceive this experience of having control of their lives taken away from them. For instance, we learned that many older people feel that control is taken away much earlier than it's necessary, and they can still make decisions. You know, losing mental capacity is not like a heart attack. It's something that goes away over time, and actually for most of us, it never really goes away. But the people in our study told us all these stories about how even small or early signs of mental or physical decline, people were ready to just swoop right in and take control for them, even if they didn't want them to. One example was the case of Lois. Lois was so proud to tell me in her interview that as a single African-American woman in the 1960s, she started her own career, she bought her own home, and now Lois is in her 70s. She has a chronic illness that severely limits her mobility, and from time to time it affects her memory. But when Lois looks in the mirror, she sees the same person who she described from decades ago. So now Lois is telling me during the interview that she had to move in with a family member to get help with taking care of herself. And then she broke down into tears. And she tells me how once she moved in with this family member, the rest of her family went into her home and gave away all of her things without consulting her. The stuff that she has collected over the years, the things that meant something to her, it's just gone. She has no idea where it is. Another thing we learned from the study is that older people have a set of information about their lives that they use to make decisions that the rest of us just don't have. So many older people use biofeedback, how their body feels to them, and their day-to-day living experiences. And they use this to make decisions. But the rest of us, their family, doctors, they don't have that information.
You are watching Green TV, the show dedicated to positive New Deal solutions and the candidates who advocate for them. I'm Angela Trusty, your host for today.
In 2005, Gail for Rail Parker's More Trains, Less Traffic campaign made Gail the first candidate in Virginia to run on the platform for rail. Gail is the first candidate in the nation to run for public office on a campaign advocating for rail as a national security concern that makes the U.S. independent of fossil fuels and makes our air and water healthier. As an on-ballot candidate, Gail advocated for rail in 11 consecutive campaigns, including 2 state-level campaigns for U.S. Senate, and encouraged other candidates to include rail in their platforms. In addition, Gail serves the environment through renewable energy advocacy, and as she picks up steam, the rail platform now champions the handicapped and the elderly. A proud Air Force veteran, civil servant, mother, and grandmother, Gail is on a mission to show that rail built anywhere in America benefits all of America.
33,000 Americans are killed on our roadways every year. 430,000 Americans are injured or maimed on our roadways every year. Every year. Rail is safer. Rail saves lives. Rail cuts dependency on fossil fuels. We can build high-speed rail nationwide for half the total cost of rebuilding roadways and bridges. Rail is fiscally conservative and socially responsible.
If you share Gail's belief that every American deserves a say in the decisions that affect their lives, spread the word about this positive solution to today's issues and climb aboard our campaign for rail and renewable energy.
These petition signatures were collected from thousands of Americans for more trains and less traffic. I'm Gail Farrell Parker, and I approved this message.
Walter did not make any indication he had a substance abuse problem. But in his mind, the social nature of keeping up with his lady friends at happy hour once in a while was much more important for his quality of life than any medical reason his doctor was limiting his alcohol intake. And last, we learned that sometimes older people want to take risks just like the rest of us. Sometimes they make decisions that make other people a little uncomfortable. And when other people are uncomfortable, that's when they want to start taking away control of their life. You know, a few months ago, I was giving a talk in the community to a group of social service providers about my research. And we were discussing this case of an assisted living facility where two residents were having a physical, romantic, consensual relationship. So what happened was the staff at this facility stopped this relationship because one of the residents' children did not agree with it. And so one of the providers that was at this event says to me, "Well, I agree with that decision. They were only having this relationship because it was fun." And I thought, what an odd answer. So I kindly said to this person, you know, I actually do a lot of things that really have very little utility beyond them being fun. I like to ride roller coasters. I like to drink wine. I like to spend time in the sun at the beach. And all of these things have some level of risk, but at 37, nobody judges me for doing them anyway. So the findings from my study have a lot of implications about how we need to promote a concept that I refer to as person-centered aging. And this is a holistic model where family, doctors, nurses, social workers, all work on trying to have older adults maintain as much control of their lives as possible as they get older, despite physical and mental challenges that they have on the way. Now, there are a few things that every one of us in this room can do if you want to help promote this culture of person-centered aging. First, we all need to start treating older people as if they still have personalities, preferences, and goals. And what this means is we actually have to go beyond thinking of older people as once have being like us and recognize in many ways they are still like us. Remember Lois, whose family gave away all of her things? What on earth was the risk of asking her what she wanted to have done with her property? The second thing all of us in this room can do is value that special knowledge that older people have about themselves and use that to understand the decisions they want to make. Just because an older person makes a decision that you wouldn't have made for them, that doesn't necessarily mean that they are incapable of making a decision. It might just mean that they are factoring in information that you just don't have. So remember Jane with the pain medicine? Her children didn't experience the pain nor the nausea that Jane did. So wouldn't she have known better which medicine that she should be taking? And what about Walter? Walter was very clear that at 94, he was okay with not living to 102. If he could go and have happy hour with his lady friends once in a while. So if Walter's doctor acknowledged this, maybe he could have answered the question, what happens if Walter has 3 drinks? Or at least they could have explored together non-alcoholic approaches to socializing. And last but not least, we need to acknowledge that when an older person makes a decision that we are uncomfortable with, that discomfort is not really a good reason to take away their ability to make decisions for themselves. If 2 consensual adults want to have a happy, healthy, physical relationship, don't they have the right to do so without worrying that their children, or worse, strangers, know what's going on in their bedroom? I think that everybody in this room would agree that that's what they would want. So I just gave you 3 things that you can do to promote a culture of person-centered aging. But you might be sitting here wondering, why should I even bother making these changes and treating older people differently? Well, if you think that I'm standing up here talking about these other older people, these elderly people who have had control of their lives taken away from them, you are sorely mistaken. I hate to bring up that fear, but just about everyone, if not all of us in this room, will be an older person one day. Hopefully, think of the alternative. And so there's a lot of stake in this for you. Because one day, somebody you know, most likely somebody that you care about, they are going to come to you, they're going to sit you down, and they're going to explain how they're planning to take control of your life. Thank you.
We have found that the transportation issue cuts across not only health care, but the economics and the social well-being of the individuals. If a person is landlocked in their home and they can't get out socially to even visit people, that's a huge issue with seniors, their mental health.
Powerful videos here. Millennials equaled boomers in 2016, and the millennials are tending to move and locate into walkable, bikeable, and pedestrian-friendly cities. Boomers, on the other hand, are moving to less populated areas when they retire or aging in place in the suburbs. Now, what does all this mean for transportation? By 2030, there will be close to 50 million 80-year-olds living mostly in areas not served by public transportation. Our producer's 93-year-old mother, in fact, still has a driver's license. She almost has to always drive. There is no public transportation in rural Oklahoma, none.
NPT reports. Aging matters.
I tell people that I can be reached from 9 at night to 9 in the morning, because from 9 in the morning to 9 at night, I'm in and out. A lot of people in our age group feel like, well, actually they're afraid to come out of the house. They're a little leery about going places by themselves. And with most of the transportation programs now, they will carry you to the door and you're on your own from there. I've known Miss Armstrong, I guess close to over 40 years. She'd rather ride with me and know that I'm going to be there beside her.
She stays with me until I get ready to come home. And I like that because I'm used to somebody being with me, you know, because my husband used to go with me all the time when he was alive.
The key to mass transit isn't just what the bus ride is like or whether you put a train in or what access ride is. It's really that whole door-to-door experience. How do we make it easier for whether it's a senior or a person with a disability or just, you know, any other citizen in Nashville to make better connections to the existing system resource? Metro Public Works is currently working on updating their sidewalk plan, in the whole walk-bike plan, so pedestrian and bicycle access throughout the city, and access to public transit and mass transit is a focus of that plan. And it's also seeing how we work with some of the emerging technologies and the emerging operators like Lyft and Uber and some of the other rideshare operators to expand the range of options that are available. We try to make it what I'll call senior-friendly and more accessible every day.
I felt terrible. I came down with lymphoma, and I had to have treatment, and as a result, I just couldn't drive back and forth to the hospital, and that was when I said, well, that was it.
Losing your freedom to drive is a major blow to your self-esteem, because suddenly, like it or not, you're dependent on others to make time and expend effort on your behalf.
Transportation is essential for defining the quality of life for an older person. It is through transportation that you're going to be able to eat healthily, to get to a healthy aging program so that you can build back your strength. Transportation is going to be essential for your ability to get to your healthcare professionals.
I enjoy getting out of the car, taking the arm of the individual that I'm transporting and walking him or her to the door, and sometimes inside and sometimes upstairs, depending on what they need.
When you give them a means to continue to live on their own terms, it's extremely empowering.
They still can do the things that they normally have done. Get to the doctors, go to the mall, go to the hairdresser, go to the bridge game, but it's just done in a little bit different way. They're just not driving themselves anymore. They're getting a ride.
So quality of life for an older person cannot be defined without addressing the question of transportation.
You are watching Green TV, the show dedicated to positive New Deal solutions and the candidates who advocate for them. I'm Angela Trusty, your host for today. Now, rail is safer transportation. In the past, the two legacy parties have refused to remove federal subsidies for big oil and big auto, which pollute our air and water and are unsustainable. Yet the two legacy parties continue to place the burden on local communities to fund rail and mass transit. Across the nation in 2016, voters considered more than $200 billion in local transportation-related ballot measures, usually sales tax or property tax measures. The Center for Transportation Excellence reports that since they began monitoring these results in 2000, transit ballot measures consistently enjoy about a 71% success rate. Rail built anywhere in America benefits all of America.
Hello everybody, I'm going to be giving you a comprehensive tour of an Amtrak Viewliner Romette. This is on a sleeper car. This is the smallest room that Amtrak has available. And there's quite a bit going on in here, despite its small size, so I'm going to try to show you everything. First off, in the front, you've got a sliding door. That's how you get in and out. You can only lock it from the inside. You can push that down and then push this little thing on top of it to keep it secure. You also have privacy curtains on both the window on the door and this little window over here. These both can be attached to stay in place with this Velcro. So you have plenty of privacy while you're in your little room. So this is a little bit hard for me to do just because there's so little space in here, but they use the space so well that I'm really just kind of amazed at how efficient this little thing actually is. So first off, you have two large seats here, which are probably a little bit bigger than the coach seats on Amtrak trains. They face each other. I'd imagine it might be a little bit tight if you're knee to knee with somebody else in here, but I mean, if you're by yourself like I am now, there's just a ton of space for you to use in a place like this. There's also this little table that folds out between them and is ready for checkers, chess, something like that on the little board here too, which I thought was kind of cute. But don't sit on the table. And then when you're in the seats, just like a car seat, I guess, you'll lift this little bar on the bottom, and you can recline to whatever angle makes you comfortable. Here's a little something just to give you an idea of what this looks like with a laptop. So you can sit here very comfortably, get some work done. But I do like how flexible the lighting is, aside from that one little issue. You've also got the mirror light, and on top of the two seats here, you have the wall lights, which have a high mode, a low mode, and you can turn them off completely. You also have reading lights available too, sort of like when you're on an airplane. So if you want to sit here and read something, you can do that too. So, there's a lot going on with this little console here too. One thing I was not expecting, being a first-time long-distance Amtrak train rider here, is that there's actually a toilet in this little room. This would be super awkward if you were sharing it with somebody else, but I guess it's nice and private when you're on your own. And then up here, there's a folding sink. See, when you pull it down, there's this little light that says sink down. So you get your water, do whatever you need to do. They have hand soap available up here. And then when you put the thing back, the water goes down the drain. Very, very creative. Also over here, you have another mirror light control and the toilet flush button. And we just hit a curb and I almost fell over. Now, everything in here seems to double as something else, and the toilet's no exception. This is your first step, and this is your second step to get up into the upstairs, not really, the upper bunk. I'll be all right, upstairs. One reason that this thing has a second window on the top, along with the one down here, is that when you pull the second bunk down from the top, the person up there also gets a view. I could demonstrate that real quick. So when you want to have somebody sleeping up on top, you just move this little thing and pull it down, and it's counterweighted, so it's very easy to get up and down. And it locks into place just like that. And there's a lot of stuff up here, and I don't have much space, but just to show you. So 1 foot on the toilet, 1 foot on the little ledge where the sink goes, and then you're up here on the upper level. Now, what you're looking at here, this is actually the mattress that you use to put on the lower bunk.
Okay, I'm ready to start my train journey. Bye, Chicago.
3 days, 2,053 miles from Chicago to Los Angeles.
Let's go.
This is Get Lost on Amtrak.
I've been actually quite impressed with the food selection on board too. They have a lot of options, and they even always have a healthy option at every meal. I got the healthy option and it looks delicious. This is grilled chicken with butternut squash, blue cheese salad. I would order this at any restaurant, right?
Well, that's it for today's Green TV. I'm Angela Trusty, your host, and we hope to see you next time.